Hey everyone, this is D, Movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. And today, I'm coming to you all with a review for Run, Rabbit, Run. Directed by Daina Reid, written by Hannah Kent, and starring Sarah Snook, Lily LaTorre, Damon Herriman, and Greta Scacchi. Story-wise, the film is centered around Sarah, a bright and resourceful fertility doctor who begins to observe strangely erratic behavior in her young daughter Mia. Soon, she is forced to confront the dark secrets of her past as her world is quickly thrown into chaos. So, I'm going to start with the pros. I am always here for a good horror story. So, this film is yet another of my selections from the Sundance Film Festival, which I caught back in January. What's funny is that it was my very last selection, which is always tough because like, this is it, I'm not trying to spend anymore, and like, what do you choose from? How do you come down on that final decision? But I was like, you know what, Run Rabbit Run. I saw Sarah Snook's name and I was like, you know what, I don't know, something about this, I'm just really intrigued by the imagery and the concept. Psychological horror is actually my favorite subgenre of horror because anything that deals with the inner workings of the mind always intrigues me. The mind in general can be a scary concept because who knows what all is swirling around in there. So I can really appreciate how that concept can tie in perfectly with horror stories and, in this case, horror films. What's interesting is that Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho was my first real psychological horror film, and as you can imagine, it was quite the unexpected mindbender. Some of my other favorites also include Misery, Seven, Rosemary's Baby, Audition, Mulholland Drive, and Black Swan. So naturally, I was excited to check out this film as a new entry in the subgenre. Now, as I mentioned, this film is directed by Daina Reid. She's an Australian director and actress who made her feature directorial debut with I Love You Too in 2010. But the bulk of her career has been centered around directing various television series, including The Spanish Princess, The Handmaid's Tale, David Makes Man, Young Rock, and Shining Girls. There are some aspects of the direction that I really appreciate, especially in regards to the atmosphere that's created here. The obvious and the biggest highlight of this film are the two lead performances. Sarah Snook is well known to many of you as the savvy and strategic Shiv on the HBO series Succession. My initial introduction to her was in The Dressmaker back in 2015. I also had the opportunity to see her in Predestination as part of my WTF film collaboration with Elliot, aka IMO Reviews. I have to say she is definitely breaking new ground here. This is quite the 180 from Shiv. And man, the emotion, the intensity, just the gravitas, she was bringing it. Her performance here is honestly what kept me invested in the film and really added to my anticipation for the mystery at the core of the story to eventually be unraveled. I can definitely say the same about Lily LaTorre as Mia. Now, child actors and their performances, that can be a very dicey thing. You want to give grace because they're kids, but the reality is, some child actors, just like regular actors, some child actors just aren't that great. But thankfully, that is not the case here. Children can be a very effective focal point in horror films. Village of the Damned, Orphan, and The Omen are great examples of that. And I have to say that in her own way, Lily does a really solid job making her mark here and establishing herself as a very frightening and effective horror figure. All right, now we're going to jump over to the cons. What do I always say about wasted potential? What I also really appreciate about horror films, and I have said this ad nauseum, is understanding the mystery behind the horror in question. If it's a haunted house, why is the house haunted? If it's a ghost, why is the ghost there? If it's a curse, what brought about said curse? So understandably, I was very interested in unraveling the mystery behind Mia's behavior and understanding just how that connected to Sarah and more specifically, Sarah's past. However, in order for that to work, as with any film's plot or story, the writing has to be on point. Now, I had also mentioned that this film was written by Hannah Kent, an Australian writer who has previously written the novels Burial Rites, The Good People, and Devotion. This is, in fact, her screenwriting debut, and I do think, unfortunately, that is part of the problem here. I do think a more experienced writer would have been able to add a lot more dimension and layers to this story. As I said before, the idea of an adult being haunted by childhood experiences and having that seep into their present life is something that is very compelling, and it is rife with possibilities as far as storytelling. However, I felt that ultimately the story was very thin and very surface and in a lot of ways somewhat generic, especially regarding the final outcome and the mystery unfolding and just where things resolved itself at the very, very end. Unfortunately, there are a lot of horror tropes that we are used to regarding the multitude of films we've seen over the years. So I do understand that it's very difficult to make something that is 100% distinctive and stands out as completely original. I get that, and I don't think that's necessarily the problem. I think it's okay to rely on some tropes or to have something that we've seen before in some way. But I think you also have to have something, whether it's the writing, whether it's the structure, whether it's the visuals. You have to have something there that stands out in a way we haven't seen before, so that when we watch it, it's like, oh, wait a minute, like I'm not used to that, or that we are subverting expectations. So we go in thinking this is one thing, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, you guys threw me for a loop. And I could see where this film could have done that, but in the end, it's just like, oh, like this is not, no. Sadly, I didn't feel that there was a lot here, save for the performances, which again are very, very compelling, and then some of the visuals that are effectively creepy and, are beautifully shot, that I found to be distinctive or engaging, save for a few moments here and there. Believe me, I don't need anything that's overcomplicated or convoluted. But on the flip side, something that's wafer thin and surface level and one-dimensional absolutely doesn't work for me either. So I'm going to give Run, Rabbit, Run a C-. Again, you can see the promise that's here in this film. Like when it reaches those moments and the performances and the tone and the visuals, you feel it. And it's like, oh yes, like where are we going? But it's just as we go on, like the unraveling becomes more like a kind of downhill, drop in momentum. And it just becomes something that you're waiting to just kind of resolve itself so you can get out of here. And that's not really the feeling you want to have watching any film, much less a horror film. Run, Rabbit, Run will be premiering on Netflix June 28th. You guys are free to check it out, leave your thoughts below, and let me know what you think. So, once again, this is D, Movieman, signing off, and I'll see you at the movies.